today is Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2016, and the location of the interview is the Veterans Center in Walla Walla, Washington. I'm interviewing Newt, that's N-E-W-T, Zanes, Z-A-N-E-S, a veteran of the World War II war. Newt left the service, Newt was in the service from July 1940 through October of 1952 as a member of the United States Marine Corps. And he was born December the 12th, 1921. Dixie Ferguson and Vic Phillips, the videographer, are conducting the interview today. And we represent the Blue Mountain chapter of the American Red Cross. So, Newt, once again, if you'll just repeat, what war and branch of service did you serve?
I was in World War II in the United States Marine Corps.
And you say it so proudly. And your rank when you left, you said, was Master Sergeant.
Master Sergeant, yes.
Okay, now then, were you drafted or did you enlist?
No, they didn't have a draft in those days. I enlisted.
In 1940, there was no draft.
1940. Anybody with any sense could see what was happening in China and Japan and in Germany, that we were going to get into this mess sooner or later, so I decided I better make my bed while I could.
Yeah, but you made the bed with the Marine Corps.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I want to get into just what you said in just a couple of minutes. I'm just going to ask a little bit of background. First of all, where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in Paulsboro, New Jersey,
Paulsboro,
down in the farm country, across from Philadelphia.
All right. And siblings? How many siblings?
Well, I have a brother that's still alive. He's 8.5 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a sister that she died when I was 3. She was 6 years old.
Okay.
So I never knew her and remembered her.
Okay.
But that was it. I had a sister and a brother.
All right. Now then, did you enlist right out of high school?
No, not right out of high school. I graduated in '39, June of '39. So I was out for a year before I went in. July of '40 is when I went in.
Now, getting back to your comment just a minute ago, you were a very young man. How old were you when you joined?
I was 18 and a half.
18 and a half. Were you one of the few in your family, neighborhood, city that really joined at that time?
I was the first Marine. No, that's wrong. We had a Marine that was dishonorably discharged. His name was Nash, several years before I joined the Marine Corps. So,
in your city?
In my town, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So actually I was the first honorable Marine that from my town, but shortly after the war started, several of the fellas that I hung around with and went to school with joined the Marine Corps.
And may I ask why you joined the Marine Corps?
Well, all right. I was a projectionist in the local theater, and during the off times I would go to the new theater and be an usher. Well, one day I was ushering and this fella in the Marine Corps dress blue uniform come in, and it happened to be a friend of mine who had moved away when we were still in grade school, and but he stopped to visit me because he knew I was there.
In his dress blues?
In his dress blues. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether that had an influence on me or not.
I bet it did.
But I'll tell you, when I went through boot camp, you know, a few days after you get there, they send you through the line to give you uniforms. Guess who threw my shoes 9.5 double E at me? Was Herb Jordan, the fella that stopped to see me.
Amazing.
So,
that's amazing.
So I don't know whether that had an influence on me or not.
Well, they're pretty good-looking uniforms. They'll attract the attention. So, but that could have been an influence. Were you just wanting to do something differently, but you made the comment you saw what was coming?
Well, yes, but you see, in my little hometown, 8,000 people, we had Saucony Vacuum Oil, which is Mobil Oil, which is Exxon Mobil now. They had a refinery there. And DuPont, down a little town below us, they had a big plant down there. Everybody in the high school, their desire was to get a job in one of those places. Being a maverick, I guess, I decided early that I wasn't going to work there for 40 years and get a gold watch or something. I was going to do something else.
A little adventurous.
Yeah, so.
And tell me, you, as a young man, you were paying attention to the news. You saw something on the horizon.
Oh, yeah.
So what could you expand on what you were saying about China and?
Well, you know, Japan, the rape of Nanking, the Japanese went into China, and they were expanding their territory. And Hitler was over there raising Cain in Europe.
Were you really aware of that as a young man?
Well, yeah.
That Hitler, what he was doing?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, although we stayed neutral for a long time, it was obvious that one of these days we were going to be pulled into it. So,
was that a common buzz?
not necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people in those days were complacent, you know, and thought the world was their oyster and they were going to.
And America was isolated.
Yeah, sure. So.
An ocean away. But I'm quite impressed that as young as you were, that you had that kind of insight.
I don't know.
But it was obvious to you.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what did your parents think about you joining
Well,
the
my
Marine Corps?
dad died when I was 12,
Okay.
so I became the man of the house early and took on an adult role, really, although my mother always made sure I had time for myself. My mother, when I went to 87th and Anthony, or 82nd and Chestnut, that was a custom house.
It was
That's-
a what?
I gotta get a drink.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Never mind. I'll take a mint. That'll help.
Okay.
My mouth gets dry.
Do you want me to get, is there water in there?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I came home with consent papers because I went up with my cousin and I went through the Marine Corps recruiting station, but I had to have consent.
But you were 18?
Yes, but you still had to have consent in those days. So my mother was sitting at the dining room table, and I just threw the consent papers on the table and went upstairs because I had to go to work. I was a projectionist in the theater. Bap, 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 up the stairs she came. And she said if that's really what I wanted to do, why she would sign the papers.
Wow.
So that was on a Tuesday, and I left on Friday.
Wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah. So,
What a mature woman, because you were the breadwinner and father of the house.
well, you ought to know my mother. You should have known my mother. You'd understand.
Yeah, remarkable.
So anyway,
That's amazing. You know, I'm just doing some quick math here. That was about 76 years ago.
yeah, that's right.
And what recollection you have, you still have that image at that kitchen table.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that Friday, things started happening very quickly. So on Friday, you reported
To Philadelphia, back to the recruiting office,
Mhm.
and there were 6 other fellows and myself scheduled out on a train to go to Parris Island, South Carolina. And don't ask me why, but the recruiting sergeant there said, Zanes, he gave me all the documents for all the people. He says, you're in charge of this detail.
Mm.
Make sure they get to Parris Island.
Mm.
Here I am, a kid that the furthest I've ever been away from home was 100 miles, you know.
Maybe he spotted some mature leadership qualities in you.
Well, anyway, so that's what happened. I went to Parris Island.
And could you, I bet you remember a few details about your experience, your boot camp experience there. Can you describe it?
That's one thing you never forget. I mean, the modern day boot training today is nothing like we went through.
And what does that mean?
Well, it's more sophisticated today. My DI, Schumann, never
Drill
forget him,
instructor. Mhm.
and his assistant was a corporal. His name was Williams. And Schumann was an old China Marine. Now, that doesn't mean much to you. But if these old guys had served in China prior to the uprising in China, they were a special breed.
What does that mean?
You mean what, special breed?
Yeah, meaning
I mean,
what made him that?
I don't know, but they had a reputation in the Marine Corps. If you'd have been a China Marine, you were something with and above everybody else. And
Special fighting characteristics, quality, leadership
yeah,
quality.
leadership
the whole thing.
quality.
Mhm.
So we were the first platoon that Schumann took through Parris Island as a drill instructor. And of course, I can't rate him against the other DIs, but he was tough. He was tough. And when I look back over my military career, I thanked him many a day for being so tough.
And could you
on
give
us.
an example of that toughness?
Tell them about the sand.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We used to drill and then we'd have fallout because we studied the Marine Corps manual. And during one brain session, we stacked our rifles, you know, with a stacking swivel, 3 rifles to the, and I was walking maybe 5 or 6 steps away from this stack of rifles when it decided to fall over. And he claimed I knocked him over. So he told me, you'll sleep with those rifles. He didn't mean sleep with them this way. He meant sleep with them this way. And I don't know when the man ever slept because he was in there 2 or 3 times at night checking to make sure I was sleeping on those rifles.
On them?
Oh, yeah.
Not cuddling with them?
No, between me and my mattress. So anyway.
Oh.
Anyway.
How do they think of these things?
Oh, those drill instructors think it's some weird stuff. One day, now we didn't have fatigues in those days. We had khakis, shined shoes, you know, and they better be shined the next day when you fell out. And one day Sunday, I was sitting, or I guess I was lounging by the steps out at the rifle range, and I had my thumb in my pocket. He walked by and saw that. He made me fill my pockets with sand and sew them up. And every night you had to wash your clothes. I had raw places before he let me take those pants off, you know. But
And the point of all of this was what?
self-discipline, you know.
Building. Mhm.
I've had some great experiences.
But the amazing thing is how in detail you remember this.
Oh, listen, one day, I don't know what I was doing, but he made me, our buckets weren't little tin buckets. They were heavy galvanized buckets. He made me borrow one of my buddy's buckets.
What's the bucket for?
Well, for washing your clothes or whatever. It was a big bucket, you know.
Mhm.
He made me fill them with sand and then stand there and hold them. And when he told me to set them down, I couldn't get rid of them. Couldn't open my hands. It took me quite a while to open my hands. But now, whether he was picking on me specifically, I couldn't say, because I didn't remember anybody else being put to those tests. But maybe they were. I don't know.
He liked you especially.
I thought he hated me. And we had a big red-headed guy from the coal region of Pennsylvania, and he could never keep in step. And Schumann blamed me because this guy was right in front of me in the platoon. He says, I want you to keep him in step. Well, I'd kick him, kick him to get him to doing stuff. And then finally he'd get mad at me. And we had what we called a square circle every night. If there was any beefs, why, you put on the gloves and got in the square circle. And this guy could have killed me. He was a big,
You mean like a boxing?
Yeah.
Oh.
But he took pity on me and popped me a couple of times, But I was in the square circle with that guy more times than a long
You became very acquainted.
Yeah.
And did this go on every night?
Well, I didn't go every night,
Yeah.
but yeah, if there was a beef in the squadron or in the platoon during the day, why, they'd get in a square circle at night.
It's amazing how creative. By the way, was that July of 1940 you were at Parris Island?
July, August, and September, it was hot.
How hot was it?
Well, I don't remember temperature-wise. I remember that when we were in the snapping in range, they had brought in beach sand. We had 22 rifles to practice the positions, standing to prone, kneeling and offhand. And I remember one day that we were out there, and I don't know what the temperature was, but there was only 7 of us that marched back to the barracks. The other guys were over either. Schumann gave you an opportunity they'd carted some off in the ambulance, the
Heat
sick bay,
strokes. Uh-huh.
heat stroke.
Mhm.
And then when the day was over, Schumann would say, well, you guys, anybody that wants to just stagger back to the barracks, get over there and sit in the shade till you feel like you can make it. The rest of you fall in, we'll march back in the,
And he could lead you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this one day, there was only 7 of us that marched back to the barracks.
How do you attribute, you sound like you were basically in really good shape from the get-go.
Well, I used to feel sorry for the old men, 24 or 25 years old, that had been out of school and weren't in good shape, because they suffered in the rigors of the training. But I kept myself in fairly good shape.
By the way, speaking of those others, were a number of them there because there were no jobs? The older ones, like 23, 24?
Oh, I have no idea. I didn't worry about people who had jobs, because I always had a job. I mowed lawns for 25 cents, and when I was a projectionist, I made $6 a week. That was in the 30s, and that was more than some of the men made, But I was a blue-collar job,
Right.
So.
Right. You just, Newt, you just come along with that tradition back in the day where you probably created jobs. You looked for jobs, no matter what they were.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, people weren't afraid to work.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we had a section of African Americans out of town, and they would come in as domestics, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody who wanted a job could find a job of some kind.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting insight. We have forgotten that part of our American background.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. Were you going to share some statistics here, Newt, that you have in your hand about the increase in the forces? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Mm-hmm.
in July of 1940, in Marine Corps Aviation, there was only 1,860 enlisted and officers in Marine Aviation. The highest number that ever became after all the wars and stuff was 125,162. So I joined the Marine Corps Aviation in its infancy.
Yeah, you did.
We had, the Navy had allotted, Navy Department had allotted 1,167 planes designated for the Marine Corps Aviation. On December the 7th, we had 230 airplanes.
Wow. Wow.
And of course, as soon as the war started, Marine Corps Aviation grew by leaps and bounds.
Because you were mostly known, the Marine Corps, for infantry, fighting,
Yes,
ground troops.
they've tried to get rid of Marine Corps Aviation for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has.
Yeah.
But one time they wanted to disband the Marine Corps.
Mm.
I can't remember the history of that, but
That's crazy thinking.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
I want to build up to December the 7th. How long were you at Parris Island in your boot camp? How long were you
3
there?
months.
3 months. What was barracks life like? And
Well,
food and communication,
Oh.
letters, anything like that? Uh-huh.
Well, barracks life was in mass. You know, you didn't have a little cubicle or anything. I know that we ate family style. You know, there were, I think, 8 of us at a table, and if you had KP, kitchen police, mess duty, why, you served the food to the troops, you know.
Was it fairly decent?
It was great food.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And we would, if you ran out of mashed potatoes, you just held the dish up, you know, the serving dish, and the messman would come and get it. And
They
refill
would
it.
come and serve you?
They'd come and get the dish
Oh.
and refill it with mashed potatoes and set it on the table.
Well, that was
And we ate family style.
hospitable. Interesting.
Yeah, and
Any air conditioning?
no, I don't. That was unheard of. Get a block of ice and blow the air over it, I guess.
But in July through
But-
September, yeah, go ahead, I interrupted you.
But sometime about 3 or 4 weeks into our training, they took us down to a building and gave us a battery of tests. And before the test, they asked you what your preference was for duty, whether you wanted to go to sea school and be a seagoing Marine, or whether you wanted to do this, be a radio school or what. And I can't remember the choices that I made other than I thought I wanted to go to sea school. Thereby you're aboard ship and you serve as a guard on the ship's company, you know. But I can't remember any category of aviation. So when I graduated, the day of graduation, the Schumann read off all the assignments, and they were forming the 5th Defense Battalion at that time. And Schumann read all these names. These guys are going here, and these guys are going here. And they read off the C school, and I wasn't on there, and I was kind of resolved to the fact that I'd probably go to the 5th Defense Battalion. So when Schumann got all done, he says, "Everybody got their assignment?" And I said, "No, sir." I hollered, "No, sir," because he hadn't called my name. So he got back on the page. Oh, he says, "You're going to aviation." Well, I was walking 9 feet off the ground.
Oh, that was your wish anyway.
Well, I didn't even I didn't even know about it.
Oh, but
I
that was a
didn't
good
even know
thing.
about Marine Corps aviation.
Oh.
But,
So that was a plus.
well, yeah, I think, don't hold me to this, but I think they were only, prior to that, they were only taking 4 men a year in the Marine Corps aviation, so,
Wow.
enlisted people. So, I was pretty excited about that.
Do you think that was just a fluke, or Schumann just spotted you from the start?
I think Schumann tried his best to test my mettle, Now, shortly before we graduated, when he hollered "fall out," that meant rifle belts and bayonets, and your sling ought to be tight. Well, this day, it was it was within a week of our graduation. And we had this guy from New York, Tedrow, and he couldn't get his sling tight. And I said, "Give me that rifle." And it had claws on the sling. So I janked it down, and when I did, I caught the claws under this nail and peeled it right back. Well, I quick grabbed the handkerchief and wrapped it around it, and it was bleeding pretty good. And we fell out, and first thing Schumann did was come down and check your rifle, inspect, and what you did was you brought it up to port arms and you slapped the sling to show him it was tight, and then he grabbed the rifle away from you and inspected it. Well, he was standing right there in front of me. When I slapped that sling, this handkerchief had gotten so saturated with blood that it splattered all over him and all over me. He never blinked. He went ahead and inspected my rifle. And after he got done, we started to march, and he hollered for me to fall out. And he asked me what happened, and I told him. He said, "Get to the sick bay and get that taken care of." And when I come back, he made me drill a platoon for being such a jerk. So anyway.
You couldn't win, Newt. You couldn't. No.
But we got a picture home somewhere that when I went home on leave, I still got this bandaged up.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to see those photos. Yeah, oh gosh. Did you like to march?
Did I like to march? Yeah. If the music was good, I'd like to march. The band played on, and I liked to march.
Did you get a nice tight, what do they call it, high and tight haircut when you went in?
Oh yeah.
That's required. Still required.
Yeah, but they didn't have much to do with me because I always kept my hair. And what they called a butch in those days,
Sure, yeah.
So they didn't have much to do with me.
Well, I like all these little details because it really paints the picture of, military life, how it starts out. And so So you got your dream job, unbeknownst to you, into aviation, and what did that mean then? Where were you going with that?
Well, we went, shortly after I arrived in Quantico, for my assignment, we left for Cuba. We went down there to play war.
What was that? Was that 1940?
Yeah.
What was that like? What did you see there?
Well, we went down, we were stationed on McCauley Field down at Guantanamo Bay.
It was there then?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, that was a naval stronghold for many years. I don't know when it started, but yeah, we were down there from October, I think, of 1940 until just before Easter of 41.
What were you doing?
Well, our squadron would, I was assigned to the supply sergeant. Well, when I first got down there, I was they put me on guard duty, 4 on and 8 off, 4 on and 8 off. I was doing that for 28 days. And it rained 26 days out of 28.
Humid?
Rain.
Humid, really
Yeah.
humid, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, after that, after I got off of guard duty, I worked for the squadron supply sergeant. And
Were you liking it so far?
yeah, I liked the Marine Corps.
So far, so good.
I liked the military life. Yeah, I didn't have any problem accepting orders. You know.
But when you said aviation, what kind of airplanes were down there? What was the mission down there? Did you say war games?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Our squadron would go on the Wasp, the
USS
aircraft
Wasp?
carrier,
Mhm.
and then spend a couple of weeks, and then they'd come back to the field, and then they'd go on the Ranger for a couple of weeks and come back to the field. And
Well, what kind of aircraft did the Marines have then?
F-3, F-2s.
Say again? Yeah.
Well, a Grumman biplane. It was an F-3, F-2, a Grumman fighter.
Never heard of it. Uh-huh.
No, well, and they had Curtiss Helldivers. That was a biplane. VMO had them, the observation group had them. And you know, the first airplane ride I had was in the BG-1.
I have never heard of these airplanes.
That's a Boeing biplane, wood and canvas.
Wooden
Wood and canvas.
canvas.
Yeah.
You flew in that?
Yeah. Well, you know, there wasn't many. You have to remember what aviation has come from. What the world has come from. You know, my Iceman used to deliver ice with a horse and buggy. You know?
And you used to lay on the bank of the river and watch little biplanes out of the dirigibles.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, really?
Well, the Akron and the Macon, they had these little P-40s drop out of these big dirigibles, fly around, and then they'd fly back and hook up, and they'd draw them into the...
Was it in New Jersey, that famous dirigible that...
Lakehurst.
Lakehurst,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Well, see, Lakehurst was... See, we had a lot of airships, what we called airships in those days. Had the Macon, the Akron, the Shenandoah, And all of them
And I'm
met,
Ohio, I think.
all of them met in ill fate. They all
Really?
crashed one way or the other. But
Uh-huh, go ahead.
I used to lay on the bank when I was 13 or 14 years old and watch them drop these airplanes out and fly back, you know.
Now, I am ignorant to this. Was this a civilian activity or part of the military training, what you were watching as a kid?
Oh, I was in military training.
What was their function?
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
And the names that you...
But see, they were,
Mhm.
I assumed that they were training, going to make that a transport of fighter planes to some foreign shore,
My
probably.
goodness.
And
What insight you have. So those planes that you named, the one that you flew in, would you describe that experience? You said wood and canvas. Would you describe that?
well, it was an old tail dragger, wooden canvas. You know, it was a.
What does tail dragger mean?
That means it wasn't a tricycle landing gear. Most planes in those days didn't have a nose wheel. They had two wheels and a tail wheel. And
Like the Stearman.
Like the Stearman. Okay.
yeah, like a steerman.
Open
yeah.
cockpit.
Yeah,
Okay. Front, back.
yeah,
Okay. A biplane. Okay.
yeah. And most of the airplanes were that way, except our fighter planes were single seat, you know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what was the reason did you fly in it just one time, or was it a regular?
No,
event?
I don't recall what it was. Maybe the pilot just needed some flight time.
I see.
His name was Lowell S. Reeve, I remember that.
You remember the name? My gosh.
See, I remember all the guys I flew with.
Isn't that interesting?
Uh,
Do you know why you do remember that? Is it just
No.
that bonding?
Well, in aviation, it's not the pilots, the officers relied on the enlisted people.
Mhm.
The mechanics kept their airplane in the air. So there wasn't a hierarchy among the
It was a team.
officers. Yeah, it was
A
a
team.
team effort.
Yeah.
And I flew a lot of patrols in the Pacific, anti-sub patrols with Joe Fitz, Lou Babb, Jim Leckie, you know.
Man, well, we're going to get to this. I'm very slow in the beginning here because these details are so interesting. They are. Because Vic, have you heard these descriptions before? No. Okay, so you were in Cuba until Easter time.
Yes, we came back on the Wasp.
Okay.
And when we entered Cape Hatteras, we had a storm. Now, the flight deck, as I recall, is 73 feet above the waterline, and the waves were breaking over the flight deck. Everybody was lashed in their bunk who wasn't on duty, because you'd be tossed around in that hallways of that ship and break your neck or arms or legs.
Wow. Unusual storm.
Yeah, unusual, yeah.
Wow. In Cape Hatteras, because that's way out there, isn't it? Where they
Well,
get the
that's
hurricanes and.
Well, it's not too far off the Carolina coast, Cape Hatteras. Not too far off the coast. I don't know in miles how far it is.
Did it do any damage to the planes or the ship?
Oh, the planes, the planes weren't there.
Oh.
They had already flown
Gotcha.
from Cuba back to Quantico.
I see. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they weren't aboard the ship.
Uh-huh. Did you have any experience with people while you were down there, or were you mostly on the base in Cuba?
No, well, we had liberty.
What was it like? Because I don't think it's changed all that much from the pictures I see.
Well, Cuba, we used to go to Guantanamo Bay, Guantanamo City.
Mhm.
And we would take a train from Bucaran or Caminera across the bay from Guantanamo Bay. And we'd take a train in the city, and the train was so fast that we'd run up to the front of the train, jump off, run into the cane field, grab a stalk of sugar cane, and still be able to catch the train before it would die. So anyway.
Daddy,
But-
take a drink.
Oh.
You need to take a drink.
Yeah, that's fine. Please take your time. Did you ever have any interaction with were you well received there?
Oh, yeah.
You were welcome there.
Oh yeah, we were always welcome.
So, Newt, has that always been a U.S. military base up until the current time?
Yes,
Guantanamo? Mm-hmm.
it still is a
And still
military
is,
base.
exactly, right. Well, okay, so you got a new assignment. You're back at Parris or Quantico? You're back at Quantico
Yeah.
now. And what was next for you?
Well, I was a maverick. How am I going to put this? The fella that was in a runner for the first sergeant contacted appendicitis, and it burst, and he went to the hospital. So I don't know how they found out that I had typing experience, but they know everything about you. So
You are a government issue.
so they took me out of the supply and put me in the first sergeant's office as a clerk. Well, I didn't join the Marine Corps to be a clerk. So as soon as I could, no, I guess it was when after the war started that I decided that I wasn't going to be a clerk anymore. Now, that's not a real smart thing to do in the Marine Corps. So I just told the first sergeant that I'm not going to be a clerk anymore. And when we shipped out overseas, I was a man with no country, really, no job. So I was assigned to a guy by the name of Ward, who was in charge of, we went to American Samoa
And how did you get there?
in February. We went on the USS President Garfield,
All right.
which was a presidential line that the government had commandeered, and the only thing, they still had carpets on the floor, you know.
From the
Yeah.
East Coast around.
Huh?
Starting from the East Coast all the way around.
Yeah.
Which, I didn't want to lose your train of thought
No.
here. Uh-huh.
No, when the war started, December the 7th, we packed up the
Tell her
whole
what you were
outfit.
doing.
Huh?
Tell her what you were doing when you found out about the war.
Yeah, that was going to definitely be a question.
I was
yeah.
playing pinochle.
Where were you?
Son,
Where
in Quantico.
Where were you?
In Quantico.
Quantico.
I was playing
Uh-huh.
pinochle with an old sergeant major and a couple other guys when the news came over. So I went back to my work, to my station, you know, back to barracks. And on December the 11th, we had packed up everything and we're on a troop train headed for California.
What was your immediate response of the emotion of hearing that news? Of course, you already, it just confirmed what you were thinking.
Yeah, no, I don't. I knew we were going out to win the war. That was my response. So you can't do that to us. We're going to win the war.
Right at the get-go, that was your feeling. Mhm.
I'll tell you another thing. I had made sergeant by this time, which was, again, was unheard of, and that's another story.
Mhm.
But Teddy Gooding was the chief warrant officer, and I were in charge of the troop train.
Wow.
Now here's a kid, 19 years old,
Wow.
or 20 years old, in charge of the troop train, getting these guys to California. But we
Okay.
got them there.
Well, if I could just stop you for a minute. Okay, you went from Quantico clear cross country to where?
Miramar.
Miramar, San Diego.
Well, it was nothing but a fenced-in desert.
At Miramar.
At that time. There was no buildings, nothing. The train pulled in there and dumped us off in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And the next day they came and with military buses and took us to North Island in San Diego.
Okay, I want to stop you again, Newt. I don't want you to lose your train of thought, but this just interests me. How long did it take you to get cross country on that troop train?
5 days.
5 days. Do you remember the mood, your thoughts? I think you kind of answered it, going cross country, because you knew this was the beginning of war.
Yeah.
And what was the mood amongst you guys? Do you remember?
I don't remember any mood. We were just going to California to ship out sometime.
Ready? Were you afraid?
No. When you're that old, you know you're invincible. You know, you're not afraid of anything.
And you're a Marine.
Pretty dumb, but
Okay, and again, so you got to Miramar. Have you seen Miramar today? Recently?
no.
Well, anyway, getting back, so you got dumped at Miramar out in the middle of nowhere, which is not in the middle of nowhere today. It's part of San Diego today. But
Yeah.
you went over to North Island, and then how long did you stay there?
Well, see, what they did was they gathered all the aviation personnel
Mhm.
from the West Coast
Mhm.
and wherever and put us in a hangar on cots. And we were MAG 11. MAG 11 was formulated,
Marine Air Group.
Marine Air Group, was the only Marine Air Group in the East. And they took everybody from aviation and made 5 Marine Air Groups, MAG 11 through 15.
Mm.
And I wound up in MAG 13. And that's the group that went to American Samoa. We left in February of
44?
42.
Oh, excuse me, where am I? 42, yeah, 41 was, yeah. Uh-huh.
42, and that was one of the staging areas for the first offensive on Guadalcanal,
Mm.
because aviation people moved in there, and a lot of I can't remember the designation of the ground troops who were there, but they staged there for the August invasion of Guadalcanal.
Wow.
It was one of the staging areas. There were other ones, but I can't remember where they were.
When you first got to American Samoa, you said, what was that like when you first landed there?
No monkeys. I mean, I expect that's funny because I expected all the jungles to be full of monkeys. There was no monkeys, but anyway.
Did you literally hit the beach?
Pardon me?
Did you literally hit the beach?
No. We pulled into a port in Pango, American Samoa, and we didn't even unload the ships. They had native stevedores there that unload the ships, and one of them I befriended, or he befriended me, and he lived in Coconut Point, out where they filmed the first hurricane there on Coconut Point. But he said, now, my sisters will do your laundry, so you bring it over to... So anyway, we became friends.
They welcomed you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They did, and
They saw you as a friend, America as a friend,
Well-
coming to defend them.
well, it was American Samoa.
Sure.
They had Samoan Marines
Hmm.
on a small detachment
Huh.
of Samoan Marines on American Samoa.
I'm going to show my ignorance again. Why was that America Samoa?
Well-
What was the original?
See, I don't know what the history of it was, but there was British Samoa, which was Upola, which was over to Pia, and that was a neighboring island. I don't know how that got split up, who claimed what and when they claimed it, but
Did you stay on the ship there then the whole time?
no. We left the ship immediately and went out. There was a civilian contractor building an airfield out across from Coconut Point, across the lagoon. And that airfield is still in service today.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
And
No,
the
I-
mission there was to be a staging point going over to Japan?
yeah, it was part of the defense line too,
Mhm.
you know. In fact, I understand that the Coral Sea battle took place. That invasion group of Japanese was heading for the Samoan group. They were going to invade the Samoan group, but they got intercepted at the Coral Sea
Mm.
in that battle.
Mhm.
But I was assigned to a guy by the name of Ward who, I think he was a tech sergeant at the time. He had charge of clearing a campsite, and I worked under him clearing.
How
the
long
camp-
did that take to build the airfield, the campsite?
Well, the airfield was operational shortly after we got there initially, but they kept expanding it, you know.
It had to be a fairly small island.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Major Bowman was the CO in charge of that area at that time. And of course, I left my post to go to the head because everybody had dysentery.
Mm.
And Ward came looking for me, and I wasn't there, and so he put me on report. And I had to go see Major Bowman in the morning, and I tried to explain what the situation was, and he said, "Well, I'm going to give you 2 weeks restriction." I said, "The restriction from what?"
Oh, you were getting sassy.
He says, 30 days. Got anything else to say?
They're still in charge, Newt.
Major Bowman and I became friends. He became a brigadier general, or was it? No, he became a major general, I guess. But up until 10 years ago, a guy that I was in a service with, J.D. Brighton, he would run into Major or General Bowman every once in a while, and he'd say, "Whatever happened to Zanes?" You know?
Still kicking.
Yeah.
By the way, on a side note, do you remember General Chesty Puller?
Yes, but I know who he is, but I never ran into him.
Yeah, I mean, he was
Yeah,
the Marine's Marine, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay, getting back to your mission on American Samoa, and what were your living quarters like there?
Well, we had shacks. We built shacks. We didn't have tents. Shacks, I mean, we had wooden floors and they had screens, and
Where'd you get your materials?
I don't remember. They showed up somewhere.
Amazing. America goes to war. Yeah. So you were in America. Were you ever in danger on American Samoa, or were you pretty well protected there?
Well, we had a few night invasions, small. We would be alerted that there was a landing party of some description from a submarine or something.
Did that happen?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It did happen.
But I can never remember any real danger. But
How do you have a landing party on a submarine? I mean,
well, it's just a bunch of harassments, Was it there? Or was it in Cuba? I guess it was there one night that they infiltrated through the lines. Yeah, that was there. And they killed 6 or 8 of our guys in their beds.
You mean the Japanese were actually on the island and had invasion parties?
They would come ashore and then they'd disappear.
Just harassment more than anything?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's interesting. Yeah.
But,
so you were always pretty much on the defense, a little bit on edge, just kind of, things were a little tenuous then.
Well, I wasn't far from my 45, let's put it that way.
Right on. So, how long were you in the Samoa, the American Samoa? How long were you there?
Well, my story goes like this. I wound up after a few months on Major General Price's PBY.
Which is what?
An airplane,
Oh.
PBY 5A.
Okay.
He was a commanding general of that area at the time. And of course, the pilots I knew from a long time ago, and I became part of the crew that flew the general wherever he wanted to go. So we were stationed at American Samoa. That was our home base. That's where the general's headquarters was.
Mm-hmm.
But we were gone most of the time.
Island hopping, basically?
Yeah.
Island hopping.
Yeah.
Just logistics, checking out the war,
Yeah.
making preparations,
Yeah.
planning? Uh-huh.
Wherever the general wanted to go, that's where we went.
Mhm. And what was your assignment on those,
On the airplane?
on the, uh-huh?
Well, we all rotated around. The only place that you didn't sit in was at the radio table, because our radio operator was a specialist in his field, and I'm not a radio person anyway.
That an important role.
But the flight engineer sat up in a tower where you monitor all the instruments and everything.
What kind of could you describe the plane? What was it like?
It's a flying, you don't know what a PBY is?
I don't. I have a general knowledge of it. I know what a steerman is, but I don't know this one.
Anyway,
It's a flying boat.
yeah.
Was it big,
Have
small?
you ever seen the movie Midway?
Well, yeah. Is that?
Well, the guys that were flying the aircraft that spotted the Japanese fleet was a Navy PBY.
And how many crew members could be on it?
Well, there's pilot and co-pilot and four crewmen.
Okay. And did you, I don't know, for want of a better word, did you enjoy that type of mission?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Where in all did you go? Were you all over the South Pacific?
Yes.
You saw
We
them?
went to the Solomons, the Gilbert and Marshall Islands, down to New Caledonia, Funafuti, Ellis Island Group.
Places you had never heard of.
Yeah, absolutely not. That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Nor had anybody else.
Yeah.
And did you stay there very long when you would hit
No.
these different islands?
Whenever the general said, "We're out of here," why, we were out of there.
Tell them about
Usually-
Christmas Island.
But usually a few days.
Christmas Island?
Well, the general wasn't with us that day.
Oh, he wasn't,
Uh,
okay.
But we had a call to go to Tonga, down in the Tonga group, to pick up two Army guys who had gone AWOL from their station up at Christmas Island. And so we flew down there and picked them up and took them to Christmas Island. Well, when they sing, "How'd you like to spend Christmas on Christmas Island?" Don't go. Because I think the mean elevation is 6 feet above sea level. And there's nothing there but mosquitoes and land crabs. So we landed there and delivered the guys, you know. And they had a short landing strip. And they gave us a tent to sleep in. Maybe by 11 o'clock at night, we were all out of that bed down at the mess hall because we couldn't stand the land crabs going across the wooden decks and the mosquitoes. So our pilot, Wade Hobbs, he showed up. We were down there drinking coffee with the mess people. And he says, "Let's get the H out of here." So we put a Jeep down the end of the runway so we could aim on him, and we flew out of there. But every time I hear that song, "How'd you like to spend Christmas on Christmas Island?"
Not very romantic at all. Would you happen to know why it's called Christmas Island?
I have no idea.
But how long did you spend in the South Pacific?
Well, we came back in October of '43 and came back to Miramar.
Mhm.
Well, we came back under the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'll tell you, I
I
cried
believe it.
because I never expected to see that bridge again.
I believe it.
And
Very emotional.
and we had some time there, and they have restaurants along there. And I went in to the restaurant and I said, "I want a head of lettuce and a quart of milk."
In uniform. In uniform?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that
'cause
was a luxury.
that's what I wanted most. I was sick of powdered milk,
Yeah.
and I hadn't had any lettuce for a couple of years. I was ready for
You
some
bet.
lettuce.
Did you get to stay there for very long?
No.
Yeah. Did they treat you well?
Oh yeah.
Anywhere?
The next morning, or it was later that day, I guess they picked us up with military buses and took us down to Miramar.
You went by bus. Did it seem surreal for you to actually be on American soil once again and just seeing that beautiful countryside going down to San Diego? Was that kind of surreal?
No, I don't recall that at all. I don't recall that at all.
And once you got down to San Diego, was this all kind of temporary, like you're going to be shipped back out again?
Well, we were there to be debriefed, really, actually, I guess.
And that was 43.
and get our physicals so that we would be fit to mingle with society again.
Yeah. Were-
And
You weren't being discharged.
no.
Yeah.
But we were all due to go on leave, 30-day leave.
Got it.
And they wanted to make sure that our health was good and everything. And
Did you go home?
oh yes, of course we were the oldest. We were the bunch that had been over the seas the longest at that time.
That was what, 3 years, did you say? 3 years altogether
No,
so far?
from it was almost 2 years since we had left
Wow.
Miramar or States. But we, Jahan was a sergeant major in charge of the camp incoming groups, and they had signed people tasks to do and they tried to put us on picking up cigarette butts or whatever you do. And Jahan says, these guys are not going to work, because he knew us all from Quantico back in peacetime. He says, you're not going to get these guys to work. They're not going to do anything. And we didn't. We just laid around.
You earned your little vacation.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I went home.
Was that by train?
No, I went home by bus.
Oh my gosh. 5, 6 long days.
And we had to bribe the ticket agent for the bus to get a ticket, because transportation you didn't have any priorities.
Even
So-
as a military, infant, soldier?
No, for travel.
No, I'm
Anyway.
surprised.
So we took her two of us took her a big bouquet of flowers.
What did you do?
Took her a big bouquet of flowers. And the second time when we went to get a ticket, and the first time we couldn't get a ticket, so that's when we took the big bouquet of flowers and we got our
It
tickets.
worked. I am so surprised that you did not have priority.
No, we didn't have any priorities in
Oh.
those days.
So did you have a couple of buddies that went with you to the
Just
East
one.
Coast? One buddy.
Just one.
Mhm.
He was going to New York and I was going to New Jersey.
Uh-huh. Now, you knew after the 30 days were up, this is
Yeah,
1943.
Yeah, I had assignment El Toro, California,
After that,
which is right outside of Santa Ana.
right?
Tell her what
Yeah.
happened when you got home, how you met Mom at the bus.
This is important.
Well, my wife of 71 years, my mother had surgery and she was in the hospital in Philadelphia. And I was going home up to see her. I'd only been home one day.
Mm.
And Betty, my wife, she was going to take the same bus up to Fort Dix to dance with the soldiers, USO.
All right.
And of course, we had been. I met her when she was 8 and I was 10.
Now, wait a minute. You already knew her?
Oh yeah.
And she was on the bus?
She was coming to Broaden, Delaware,
Okay.
to catch the bus where I was going to catch the bus.
Okay.
And she was engaged to somebody
Oh,
else
I love these stories. All right.
And
who was
of
in the
course,
South
she-
Pacific.
Oh, my gosh.
she sent me stuff overseas when I was overseas. She sent me a few things.
So this is
and-
just a childhood friend.
Yeah, we had always in this. See, you didn't pair off in those days. You were in a crowd. The crowd did this and the crowd did that. And we were always together in the crowd. But when she saw me standing there in that uniform, she couldn't resist.
I don't blame her.
And when I
Did
took
she
off
make
the
the
air-
first move, Newt?
I don't know. We saw each other, and she came across the street, and I hugged her, and that was it.
Well, not quite. That wasn't the end of the story.
All my best pictures are in the South Pacific in the bottom of the ocean. That's what she used to say.
Yeah,
So you were on the so you got the hug and you're on the same bus, going in the same
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
Did you sit together?
I suppose, I don't remember that, but I
She
know,
would.
I know we couldn't wait till the next day to get together again.
You
And,
saw her in a total different light.
Well, that was in October,
Uh-huh.
and we got engaged December the 3rd, and we got married December 29th.
Love it. I love it. Nice. So she was, did she ever get to that dance?
I suppose, I don't know.
Didn't matter.
No.
But anyway, so she was a real quick marriage, but she knew that you were going to be gone again.
Well, she went with me.
Oh, she did?
I mean, I was en route to, and that's another story. Colonel Hoffman, I was at El Toro in this training squadron, and Colonel Hoffman was going to start MAG 51 in North Carolina, and he wanted 8 guys by name, and I was one of the guys, and Fred Magnuson was in that training squadron. He was another one of the guys. We had served in the Pacific with Colonel Hoffman. And Betty, we were going to get married. I had a nice apartment on Newport Beach right out. I could walk right out of and get on Earl Flynn's yacht right out my back door.
Oh, wow.
Well, and she had a brother that lived in San Diego, so
Oh, okay.
He was a
That was
commander.
helpful.
He was a
Yeah.
commander in the Navy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So anyway, we were going to get married out there, but
Nice honeymoon at Newport Beach.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, prior to the wedding day, well, I got these orders to go east, so we got married in our little old church in Rome. And then she went with me to North Carolina, and she was with me ever since.
Okay, then you both came out to California again together. Did you come back to El Toro?
No.
You stayed on the East Coast?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I stayed on the East Coast, and I was, Major Mackin was, he was another guy that I did duty with in the Pacific. He was my executive officer in the squadron, and he said, you know, your name's going to come up pretty soon to go back overseas. He says, but I got a good assignment for you if you want it. And it was to go to 87th and Anthony in South Chicago to a Naval Advanced Engine School. Now, 87th and Anthony was a vocational school that Roosevelt had constructed during his presidency. Had 3/4 of a mile of hallways, and the Navy had taken that over as a school. So I said, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I went out to Chicago and went to school there. And
Were you going to make a career, did you think, of the Marine Corps at that time?
well, I didn't really think about it one way or the other, I guess. After we were married and I had my son, why, your values change a little bit, you know. And when I was in Korea, you know, my son was just old enough to realize they were televising all of this stuff, you know, to realize that his daddy was there. And I think it had an effect on him. So,
Probably scared him.
yeah, so, you know, your value, I'd probably be pushing up Daisy somewhere if I'd have stayed in.
You
So
think?
that-
Do you think so?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not a,
Yeah.
it's a pretty high-risk occupation
Of course it
in the
is.
Marine Corps.
Well, you were saying Korea, so in the interim, you were in Chicago area,
Yeah,
assigned
going
there
to,
for a while,
going to school.
going to school, and then, see, that would have been
That
about
was
40,
43, late
43, still 43.
or was that 40? No, it would have been 45. What, 40? When was Newt born, Pamela?
45.
Yeah, that would have been late 44, 45.
Okay, you were happy with the assignment then in Chicago, and you stayed
Yeah.
there for a while?
Well, I completed the school, but I was on the boxing team and I was on the basketball team, so they kept me there. They kept me there for a while.
What did you call that, four quarter every night? You learned how
Square.
to box four square every night.
Square circle. Yeah.
Square circle. You got all your skills from that. Huh?
I don't know.
But so you had some good extracurricular
Yeah.
activities while you were in the Chicago area. And how long were you there, Newt?
I think I was there for 5 months.
Not too long.
Well, I think the school was 3 months, and I stayed an extra 2 months.
Okay, and then what?
Then I went back to, what did I do then? Oh, I joined, I went back to North Carolina, and they were forming Naval Aviation Technical Training Detachment. And they assigned me because I'd had this advanced engine training. They assigned me to this mobile training group, which we had 9 guys, each a specialist in their own field, to go from base to base to instruct on, at that point in time, it was the Curtis Commando, a big transport, took place of the DC-3. And we went to Buffalo, New York to go through a training on that airplane. But it didn't help me because a Pratt & Whitney R2800 is a Pratt & Whitney 2800, where it's whatever that airplane's on, that's an engine.
Okay. Is it a cargo type aircraft?
No, it was a troop transport. So anyway, I taught, there were 2 of us that were teaching engine, Dudovic and me. He taught the enlisted classes and I taught the officer classes. And we'd go from airfield to airfield and set up a temporary school and
Okay.
teach.
Uh-huh.
We had mock-ups of everything, you know,
And you did that in North Carolina for how long did you do
until
that?
the end of the, I was doing that at El Centro, California, when the war ended.
Okay. By the way, the day the war ended, where were you? In 1945, El Centro?
Yeah.
What were your emotions? Do you remember that day?
Well, I remember we were playing hearts.
Playing cards again.
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor and the war ending, I love it.
And no, we were all tickled to death it was over, you know.
You bet. But you still stayed in the service.
I joined the 155 Howitzer Battalion in Philadelphia as a reserve outfit, you know.
Okay.
And I became, my official title there was, I was a senior member of that battalion, and I became Fire Direction Control Chief and Battalion Survey Chief.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of skills. You had a lot of skills. Learned a lot.
Yeah, I did. Well,
The service, really.
and when the Korean War started, why, the whole unit from Philadelphia was shipped to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, Marine Base. And as soon as they found out that I had a aviation background, they did not need artillery people in Korea. They needed aviation personnel. So they immediately shipped me over to Cherry Point, which was Marine Air Base, and from there I went to let's see, that was I wasn't there very long. I was there for Christmas, I remember, but then I went right after Christmas. I went to Korea as a replacement in VMF 212, which was a course there, a fighter squadron, to replace the engineering chief who had been rotated out.
So by this time, you had a son.
Yes.
Just your one son.
Yes.
And how about Betty? Was she? Was this kind of a surprise that you'd be going back overseas again?
Well, I don't think she wanted me to go necessarily,
Of course.
but I wanted to go.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah, I figured I wasn't one that was going to balk at not going back, you know. I stayed in the Corps, and I was a Marine.
Absolutely.
I still am.
Yeah, I bet. No ex-Marine about you.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I went over to Korea, and what I did in Korea was run the maintenance crew, you know.
Where was your base? Where was it located?
Pohang, K3, Pohang Dong.
Was that?
It's on the coast, and it's about 60 miles below the 38th parallel.
Were you there during the cold season?
Yes. And the Army had an airfield at Daegu, K5, which was right across the mountains from us. And then Busan was way down to the end of the peninsula, you know. And that they had Marine aviation down there too.
I want to ask you, did you always believe when war was declared that we would be victorious? Did you always have that confidence?
Yeah.
From day one?
Well, if you look back, everybody was on board. I mean everybody. There was nobody that was anti this and anti that and politically correct this and politically correct that, which was a bunch of baloney, you know, still
This
is.
is on the tape, yes. Thank you. Absolutely.
And we had no doubt that it was just a matter of time, but I'll tell you, the cards fell our way, you know.
Why do you think they did?
I don't know, you just take the Battle of Midway, you know. What do I want to call it? Not guts. But the forethought that those admirals had on those aircraft carriers and those ships to take the positions that they took to defeat the Japanese fleet, that was uncanny, you know.
What do you think that was? Is it just that built-in American value system? What do you think?
I don't know. I take my hat off to these guys that. Who wants to get in the submarine service? You know, spend your life under, not knowing whether you'll see daylight again.
Right.
My hat is off to those guys. It's like these SEALs today. You know, those guys go through rigorous training. They have absolutely no regard for self. And I think in the days that we were in World War II and Korea, you could depend on your buddy. You didn't worry about yourself, you worried about your buddy. And
weren't you trained that in the Marine Corps?
well, a Marine, let's put it this way. A Marine is first a rifleman. He might be a cook by his designation, but first he's a rifleman. And every Marine is that way. Regardless of your training, you better be able to handle a rifle.
And that means to defend yourself and your buddy,
That's it.
is what that's about.
You can always depend on the guy next door to you.
And that's the message.
Yeah.
And do you have any idea why we have such a powerful tradition of that? Do you think America is exceptional that way?
Yes, I do. I think, especially the military, although, you know, there's a esprit de corps in the Marine Corps that you don't see in the Navy or in the Army.
How do you explain that?
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know, but if I'm in a grocery store and a fellow Marine sees my hat or a shirt that designates me as a former Marine, there's always a recognition, regardless of where you are. You might be in the Taco Bell, you might be in a Safeway, or, you know, there's always a recognition.
Yeah.
And once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that way with the other services.
It is a pride. It is a great pride, a good pride.
Yeah.
A brotherhood. Like, yeah, for sure. It's, yeah, well, I just wanted to hear your
Well, I've
take.
kind of rambled on here.
No, I'm asking these questions. I just, this is good for the record. These stories need to be told. Someone 20 years down the road listening. Oh my goodness, someone from the World War II is sharing this story.
Well, you know,
is amazing. I mean, this is rich.
We go to, before we left San Antone, we went to Admiral Nimitz Museum in Fredericksburg, Texas. And we always go there for the Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and
Marine Corps birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Marine Corps Birthday, and Pearl Harbor Day, and the Commandant of the Corps,
Hagee, former commandant of the Corps.
He's my friend now, you know? Although he's a 4-star general and a broken down old master sergeant, but we get together at those places, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a recognition there, you know?
It's the band of brothers.
Yeah.
No question about it. So you served in Korea and then came home. Was that about in 1952 then,
Yes,
when you came back home?
October of 52.
And that's when you decided to get out of the
Yeah.
Marine Corps.
Right.
And then moving forward, what did you do the rest of your career?
Oh, well, I got into industrial construction. there again, I started from the ground up, and got into field engineering work, and that's another whole career. I wound up with, what did I wind up as? Director of construction for Allied Chemical. Who
Was
became,
that still in New Jersey? Uh-huh.
well, yeah, that was in their corporate headquarters.
Mhm.
What was I, manager of construction engineering.
Okay.
That's what,
You went
yeah.
all over the world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I traveled all over the world.
Sounds like
in
a
my
great
work.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you able to take your family along, or was it?
No, because where I went was not conducive. It was industrial construction. It was always in an industrial area, not a tourist
Sure.
place.
Sure. Well, so did you retire in New Jersey, but you got down to Texas?
I retired in New Jersey, but I lived in North Carolina. I retired to Maine. I had 5.5 acres on a lake in Maine,
Wow.
but
Perfect.
Yeah, like that sounds beautiful.
and we built a little shack on the lake up there. But it was 4.5 miles out of a little town, and wasn't conducive to a good lifestyle for Betty. In fact, she went to the hairdresser in this little town and wanted to know where she could get a manicure. And the girl says, manicure? We don't give manicures, we dig in the dirt.
Now, wait a minute. We forgot Pamela.
Well,
Pamela.
You didn't forget me.
No, Pamela was born in 1953.
In New Jersey.
After I got to see, we had my son, and when I got back from Korea, Betty and I talked it over, and I said, unless we want to raise a one-child family, we better think about having some more family. So that's when Pamela was born, and I got back in October of 52, and she was born in July of 53.
That's how those things happen.
Huh?
That's how that works.
That's it.
Are there any more than?
No.
The two, okay. Grandchildren?
Have two. One of them lives here.
And if you'll name their names?
My son's name is Newt Zanes III.
All right.
My grandson is Newt Zanes IV.
I love it.
And he's married to Vicki Gordon, who is the granddaughter of Andy's Market.
People that started in.
Yes, what a legacy.
And he has 3 little girls, my great-granddaughters.
Great legacy.
And my granddaughter, Jessica, she lives in Denver. She's a nurse practitioner,
Wonderful.
and she has a little girl, so I have 4 great-granddaughters.
Wonderful.
She and her husband lived there.
In Denver.
Uh-huh.
Wonderful, wonderful. Did you ever join any service organizations after?
Well, I'm a life member of the VFW,
Great.
you know.
All right.
I never joined the American Legion
Mhm.
for whatever reason. I didn't have any reason to join them,
Mhm.
being a veteran of foreign wars.
Right, absolutely. Well, Newt, in looking back, you touched on it a little bit about the discipline. Could you express again what the military has done for you? We know what you did for the military, but what it's done for you.
Well, it taught me a lot of leadership qualities, you know. And I guess I've always taken a leadership role in whatever I attempted to do.
It sounds like it.
And because of the training that I received by old Schumann.
Yeah.
Back in the
Mhm.
back in the days of the early days of my Marine Corps career. I met a lot of great people in the Marine Corps that I looked up to. And everybody that, Whitey Hobbs he was our pilot in the PBY. But I knew Whitey when he was a tech sergeant.
Mm.
He was a flying tech sergeant. Before we went to Korea, and then when Korea, or before we went overseas, we were in Guadalcanal, and he was flying a flight, and his wheels wouldn't come down, and he was instructed by the tower to land in the bay. Now, Whitey Hobbs is 6'2", a big man. He landed that F-3, F-2 on the bay, stepped out of the cockpit, walked across the wing, and stepped into the crash boat. Hardly got his feet wet. But we would be flying. I'd fly from here to H and back with that guy, because we'd be flying maybe 2 or 3 hours on headed for some island, and he'd look out and he'd say, "Well, we got about 2.5 degree drift," and we'd throw a smoke flare out to checking. Yeah, we'd have about 2 degrees, but he'd say, "Well, probably look right out there about 11 o'clock." And he said, "In about 20 minutes we'll see that island." You know, no navigator aboard at all, you know.
Wow.
But he had a sense, he had a sixth sense about.
Very intuitive.
Yeah.
Well, you have met some pretty amazing unsung heroes, no doubt about it. If you had to do it all over again, would you do it?
No, absolutely.
Tell about being there when Eddie Rickenbacker came back.
Oh, well, we happened to be at home in American Samoa when they had picked up Eddie Rickenbacker after his sojourn at sea, you know, being down at sea. And he came in and I saw him come down the hatchway, gaunt, all looked like a stick figure, you know, gaunt, all bent over. And I have a picture of that somewhere, but I don't know where it is.
A true American hero.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, any one of you that signed up and said, "I am committing myself to this country," you know, you throw caution to the wind, because you had no idea where you were going.
I saw Eleanor Roosevelt.
You saw Roosevelt?
Eleanor, she came in, she was on a tour of the Pacific,
No kidding.
and she came in a B-24. She wanted,
Wow.
and she was, of course, visiting the general. She was going to the general's headquarters,
Wow.
and I happened to see her get off the airplane.
Wow. The original feminist, huh?
Yeah, and tell about Betty Davis and
Oh, well, that's,
no, that's fun stuff. Tell.
USO type stuff?
yeah, well, yeah.
Uh-huh.
When I came back from the Pacific, I was in California, of course, and I went to the Hollywood Canteen.
Oh,
And
my dream.
and Betty Davis was sitting there at a table, and so I went over and sat down to chat with her, and I guess we chatted maybe 35 or 40 minutes.
Let me guess, she was very charming.
And I could show you that short snorter, Bill. A short snorter is a series of money. Starts out with a dollar bill. And if you've crossed the international date line in an airplane, why, you're entitled to be a short snorter. Don't ask me what that means.
I've never heard of that.
But anyway, so you sign everybody's bill, you know. And so I said to Betty, would you mind giving me your autograph? And I said, here, sign my short snorter. So she took her eyebrow pencil
I love it.
and signed my short snorter bill.
Yeah.
Did you keep that?
Oh, yeah, I got it. I showed it to her not long ago.
Oh, would I love to see that. That is I tell you, that's just your life is out of a movie. I tell you, what was that? Did you get to go more than once to the Hollywood Canteen?
No, that's the only time I went.
Oh, what was that like? Was it just jam-packed?
Yeah. In fact, I saw a Navy fella that was from my hometown in there.
Wow. I mean, what was it in Hollywood? I can't think of the building now where it was, but anyway. But, I mean, hundreds and hundreds. Were the guys, did they outnumber the girls in there? Was it pretty even?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Was it really big band music?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Were you a pretty good dancer?
Oh, yeah.
He
My
and my
wa-
mom were both really good dancers. She used to tap dance. My mom did
My
ballet.
wife,
Oh, my.
my wife took dancing lessons from the time she was probably 12 until we got married.
Wow.
Her ambition was to open a dance studio
My goodness.
because she'd done acrobatic dancing, and
My goodness.
yeah, we cut a rug pretty
Cut
good.
the rug. 70, may I ask, when 71 years of marriage, and when did she pass away?
A year ago in June.
Oh, boy, that's tough. That's a tough one. But
Yeah.
this is a classic World War II story.
Yeah, and wait, tell about dancing with what's-her-face.
Well, before we went overseas, we were stationed at North Island, and we'd go into San Diego in the evening, and I think it was a Grant Hotel had a little bar and dance floor down in the lower level, and 3 or 4 of us would go there in the evening and have a drink or two. And this night we were there, and George Raft, you don't know who that
I
is,
do know who George Raft is.
and Betty Grable come in,
Absolutely.
and they sat across the way, and you know, we recognized who they were, and we got to batting the breeze, and of course there was music there, and I said, I'm going to go ask Betty Grable for a dance. You can't do that. Bet you
Did she?
$20 you can't do that.
Hey, were her legs showing?
Yeah, no. But so I said, okay, I'll take the bet. So I went over, and she got up, and we danced. We didn't dance long, because soon as they saw I danced, then everybody cut in, you know. But I danced with Betty Grable and
was-
collected the $20.
GIs all over the world were eating their hearts out. They had her famous pin-up on all their barracks.
You know, Grumman, let me get a drink.
That is a wonderful story.
I've had some great times. Grumman's Chinese Theater was running a military movie, and I can't remember which one it was. But they had an F-4F, a Grumman Wildcat fighter sitting outside of the theater. And I don't know what two guys and I were there looking at the airplane when Mitzi Gaynor, Carol Lombard, and Martha Ray came out of the theater. And they wanted to know about this. Do you know about this airplane? Well, knew about the airplane, so,
Glad to tell.
yeah, so we visited with them. We visited with them for quite a while.
Wow.
You know, I've had some great experiences.
I tell you, that is a part of American history during the war years.
Yeah.
All of those names. And in fact, this is kind of off the subject, but Martha Ray, I shared a 3-holer with Martha Ray in Vietnam.
Oh, is that right?
She was a lieutenant colonel over there. Yeah, great lady.
Yeah.
By the way, one last question. Bob Hope, did you get to see
No.
Bob Hope? No Bob Hope shows.
No,
Yeah.
I never saw him.
Yeah, but you saw the important ones with these ladies.
Well, I never had any use for Joey Brown either, because he was on a tour of the South Pacific, and he was scheduled to come to the Samoan group. But when he found out there was no Army personnel there, why, he deviated from that. He wouldn't come
Too bad.
because there was only Marine Corps there.
Too bad for that.
So I never had any use for him anymore.
That's very unfortunate. You're all the American heroes. So, golly. Well, is there anything else that you can remember that I have overlooked?
I hope you're editing all this junk out of
You
this
need
thing.
to tell about the T-shirts. You've got to tell about the T-shirts. That is so funny. Let him tell
Well,
you.
when we first got over to American Samoa, the native girls wore lava-lavas, but they wore them below their breast.
Lava.
That was their skirt.
Oh, okay.
And the married ladies wore their lava-lavas above their breast. Well, some brilliant PR man, some officer, decided it was bad for the morale of the troops to see these young girls running around with their breasts exposed. So,
Are you
and this
kidding?
was,
I said, are you kidding?
So he gathered all these talking chiefs of the surrounding villages and issued them green T-shirts, which was our green T-shirt, for these girls to wear, so they wouldn't corrupt their troops. Well, they wore them for a couple of days, and then they weren't used to having anything depress their breasts, so they just cut holes. They just cut holes in the T-shirts. So
Oh, well.
it wasn't long before the T-shirts were used as wiping rags for something, so it only lasted a few days.
You guys had to love the culture. War as hell, eh?
Yeah.
That's
I'm
great.
telling you.
Oh, golly sakes. Steph, I don't know if you could write home about some of this or not, but, I just one other last thing. Was there regular communication letters that was mailed pretty good when you were overseas?
Well, it was email in those days.
Email or V-mail?
Email, they called it.
Oh.
V-mail.
V-mail, yeah.
V-mail, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it happened that Henry Engel was my censoring officer. So I got away with murder. Because my mom, even until my mom broke up housekeeping, every year she sent Henry a fruitcake that she made.
All right.
Because during the correspondence between my mother and myself in the islands, why, she got to know Henry. So.
Isn't that a great story? Oh, well, Newt, I could spend a full more
Listen,
hour.
we've been here.
I know.
You said this would only take an hour.
I did say hour and a half. Vic, do you have any?
I have one question. How did you feel about dropping the atom bomb?
Oh, good question.
Well, I'm telling you, I didn't have much use for Harry during the Korean mess because he called it a police action.
Mhm.
But I thought he did the right thing when he decided to save. He not only saved American lives, he saved thousands and thousands and thousands of Japanese because they would not have given up.
Mhm.
So, yes, I was not opposed to that at all. And
And in fact, you were in the areas where they did all the testing, Marshall Islands and
yeah, well, yeah, that was
afterward.
after, yeah.
Yeah, but you could
But,
remember
yeah,
where all that was.
But I saw Fat Albert in a restoration hangar
Hmm,
in Washington D.C.
wow.
where they were restoring the Enola Gay prior to sending it off to its final resting place, you know.
Really? Wow.
But they didn't know it at the time, but that Fat Albert that was sitting in that hangar was, all it needed was to be armed, and it was
Hmm,
ready to go.
ready
But
to go.
they soon carted it out of there.
Yeah, interesting. I keep saying one last question, but Tinian Islands, did you get there also?
Who?
Tinian
No.
Island, did not get there. Mhm.
Hmm.
But, well, you saw the islands where, my gosh, the Marines, Guadalcanal, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, what a history of
Yeah.
Marine fighting.
Yeah, well, see, I was
Wow.
back before
Mhm.
a lot of
All
that
took place.
happened up
Yes.
on the way to Japan.
Yes, and what you had to be so proud of the Corps. And
Yeah.
the job they got done.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're still doing it too.
You
Yeah.
bet
If
they
some of
are.
the clowns down there in Washington would listen to the military people.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
yes.
and we got to go to the opening ceremonies for the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico in '06.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
fabulous.
see, there was only
Fabulous.
15,000 seats available
Mm.
to former Marines and the public. And I don't know why, but I applied for 3, and I got 3.
Oh,
I got 3
fabulous.
seats.
Did you get to go,
and,
Pamela?
Yes.
Pamela and Betty and I went. It was,
Oh,
It was
pictures
amazing.
of that, of
it
course.
was
amazing.
very moving. It was.
Oh my, well, you have, there's something about you, Newt. It's more than just gold dust over your head. You must have.
Well, if you ever
had-
get to Quantico and go to that museum, go between, on the way up to the chapel, on the walkway, between Iwo Jima and Okinawa, over here on the right-hand side, you'll see my brick.
Really, your brand, oh,
Yeah, they-
fabulous.
They have commemorative bricks, and our
Yeah.
family went together and
They surprised me with a brick.
got a brick, and he didn't know about it. We just took him one day, and his grandson came from out here. He didn't. That was a surprise. And my brother, and my mother, and myself. The only one who couldn't come was my niece.
Yeah.
But we all went and to show him his brick.
What a legacy! Oh, that's.
So my brick's up there, if you ever get up there, take,
I have been
take a
through,
look
I
at it.
was in I drove through Quantico a few years ago, but I don't think the museum was.
Oh, the museum
Yeah.
is
Was there
fabulous.
yet. I bet
Fabulous.
it
But that,
is.
that ceremony was
Yeah.
outstanding,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Well, I have to ask you, have you been on that honor flight to Washington?
Oh, yeah.
You did go.
I went with
Great.
The guy who started it.
with Jeff Miller,
Oh, great.
with the guy. Went on the last official flight out of North Carolina.
Oh, great.
And I'll tell you, that is an experience.
I got to escort from Spokane,
Huh?
World War II.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It's a wonderful, never
Yeah.
forget it.
No,
Yeah, I know. And well deserved.
I came back covered with lipstick.
Too bad.
For the girls in the terminal, you know, that date back to the times when,
They did, they had performers in Washington. Where did you land at National, right?
yeah.
And they had performers there singing and doing the music.
Well, that was on the way out.
Oh, that was on the way back.
Yeah, Bob and what's Bob Dole's wife's name?
Can't-
Oh, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yes.
They met us at the,
Yes, they were
and,
so good about that.
they
Uh-huh.
were with us the whole day.
Isn't
Yeah.
that wonderful?
Yeah.
What a great. Well, the World War II man I escorted on the plane, the flight attendant was trying to pick up on him. Stop that. He's a very.
You went on the
Yeah, I
oh, that's
She
good.
escorted somebody.
World War
That's,
II.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But well, anyway, we're running out of tape here.
I hope you're not taping all this.
Oh, he's getting all of it, yeah. But anyway, I never quite know how to end these interviews because he knows I get very emotional because I have no words for you guys.
Well, you can give me a hug. That'll end everything.
All right, maybe even on tape. Did I do it on tape?
Yes,
I'm going to do
sure.
it on tape. Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. Don't cut that off the tape. But that's my thank you. And thank you for coming in. And then your next fun thing will be the Sturban flight
yes.
in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And he's out there videotaping that.
Oh, great.
And he will have a DVD of that. And they do a little pre-interview, and then he tapes you taking
Oh,
off.
super.
And then when you
The
land,
only problem I have with that is I'm not worried about getting in the airplane. I'm worrying about how I'm going to get out.
oh, they have AMVETs.
Look at you.
On either side. Believe me, you're in good hands. They.
Well, I could get him to do a slow roll and then just
drop.
unloose my and drop out, you know.